Do you want to be part of something bigger? At Siemens, we use AI to transform the everyday. Our engineering solutions drive innovation and change. We're leading in technology and building a sustainable future. Join Siemens and make an impact to transform the everyday. Apply now and be part of something extraordinary. Visit siemens.co.in/careers.
Today on CityCast Boise, shrinkflation isn't just an issue when buying potato chips anymore. It's hit the local housing market. Idaho Statesman reporter Nick Rosenberger is here to explain the trend of shrinking homes in the Treasure Valley and what it could mean for people looking to buy. Nobody likes getting less for their money, but there could be some benefits for people who've been priced out of the market. It's Monday, September 9th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Hey, Nick, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, as you've reported, the Boise housing market has been a roller coaster over the past couple years. But there's a new and potentially surprising twist: shrinking houses. What are these shrinking houses?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a really interesting question. So lately we've kind of seen a trend of houses shrinking basically and just getting smaller and smaller. And there's a lot of different reasons for this. From home builders maybe focusing more on building smaller homes so they can fit more on a single lot. The cost of homes, they're exceptionally expensive right now, and so maybe a smaller home is a little bit cheaper for people to buy. And so it's kind of a national trend that we're seeing, and it's also a trend that we're seeing here in Boise and the Treasure Valley as well.
So, Nick, you mentioned that this is a national trend, maybe not completely unique to Boise, but do you think that how much our housing prices have skyrocketed recently plays into why that has become the trend here as well?
Yeah, for sure. Back in, say, like 2011 or so, the median price for a home was about $130,000. And today that's about $570,000.
Wow.
In Ada County. So there's been a massive spike in housing prices here. And one of the biggest factors is the size of the house. So, if you're going for a 10-bedroom house, that's obviously going to cost a whole lot more than a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
If you're going for like multiple bathrooms, multiple bedrooms, multiple, like a gym, like all of this extra space it's gonna add up. And so smaller homes might be more, affordable for folks. 10 years ago, maybe you could have afforded a 3-bedroom home, for you and your spouse, and then two bedrooms, one each for your kid. And now maybe it's like, well, let's look at maybe a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom for you and your spouse, and then your 2 kids, and your kids can share a bedroom. And so there is, I think, somewhat of a correlation between housing size and the price. And most houses that have been built in prior years are just a lot bigger than what people can afford nowadays.
So maybe this trend will bring back a little bit more affordability to housing in the Treasure Valley.
It could, yeah. I think that's a reasonable conclusion to make. And I mean, we still have to see how it plays out. And, there's a lot of things going on with economics in the market. But I think it could play a role. It could help bring down the price a little bit.
I do have to ask, I know this is about affordability and maybe, economical living, but is this trend just shrinkflation, but instead of a bag of chips or a box of cereal, we're shrinkflating houses?
It could be. I mean, yeah, the shrinkflation is definitely one of those buzzwords that we've seen a lot. People or companies, for instance, are keeping the same price for a bottle of toothpaste, but shrinking how much toothpaste you get in that bottle. That's shrinkflation. And yeah, I think that could be taking place here too. Where builders are like, hey, I'm still gonna or like home sellers are going to be like, hey, I'm still going to charge this much, but it's just a smaller home. So that definitely could be happening here. I'm not sure if I have like the numbers or the exact like data to really confirm that or not. But yeah, that could definitely be something that's happening as well, for sure.
And with this kind of changing, shrinking home trend, are we seeing just changes in like square footage? So like where before you might be able to get like a 2,000 square foot home that had 3 bedrooms, but now you're getting a 1,500 square foot home with 3 bedrooms? Or are you getting like fewer bedrooms? Instead of 3 bedrooms, you're getting 2, or 2 bathrooms, you're getting 1. What are these homes looking like?
Yeah. So some of the realtors that I've spoken to about this, home builders are cutting out things that may have traditionally been a part of the home. So, the traditional living room where you've got like the seating area and your china cabinet, and you basically like you host your guests there. That formal living area is kind of falling away in these newer builds. People don't really use those anyways anymore. So like if it was popular in the 80s, like it's not really showing up as much in houses built in 2020 or 2023 or 2024. So there's those like formal living rooms are kind of falling away. People may not be wanting those as much or even care about those as much. So one of the realtors I was saying was there's just less formal living space.
Mm.
You can fit everything you want in a smaller foot like home. So in past decades, maybe you wanted like a grand entryway or like a really formal hallway, and those are kind of just shrinking down a bit. You don't necessarily need all of this space, and I think there is like a change in mindset, a consumer mindset as well. That yeah, maybe you don't need a McMansion in the middle of the city. You can be just as happy with a smaller thing, and I think that goes somewhat into um, kind of the changes in thinking that we saw during the pandemic. Is that there was a lot of self reflection of like, hey, what's important to me,
Hmm.
and people are kind of deciding that more often deciding that maybe a giant house isn't as important to me if I can get everything that I want lifestyle wise and have my family close by. So I think there's give and take there. I don't think it's a perfect 100% correlation, but I think there's some things there that do ring true.
I think I'm not alone in saying that shrinking homes overall kind of sounds like a net negative, sort of like a compromise on the traditional idea of the American dream and what the American dream should be when it comes to a house. But are there some potential positives about this trend that could be a benefit for our area?
Yeah, for sure. And I totally get that. But I want to caveat as well that there's still large homes out there. It's in pockets that this is kind of happening. So if you still want a big home, there's still plenty of spaces to go and get that. On average, it's shrinking, but yes, there are still like plenty of opportunities to get a larger house if you want that. But you're right. Like, yeah, it does sound scary that like, it's the basis of the American dream is to like buy a house and build a family, and be able to support that family and to see like a part of that American dream kind of like shrinking or like coming down can kind of like cause some like fear or like anxiety and frustration. I don't see it as a net negative thing though. I think, with the pandemic, with kind of the reassessment that we did as a country and as a community as a whole, like people started to do a lot of reflection on what matters to them. And I think a lot of people decided that, maybe it is more important that, I live in a denser neighborhood that might have closer access to a coffee shop without having to drive to it. Um, which those neighborhoods are then probably going to have smaller footprints because it is denser. And so I think it's a trade off. There is a negative in that, if the average house size is getting smaller, maybe there's less opportunity to get a big house. But also it gives folks an opportunity to really engage with and live in areas that they care about.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely can see there is some trade-off factor where you're going to have, yeah, like you're talking about, if you want to live in a neighborhood that has high walkability, and denser housing is a way to achieve that. And yeah, if you want to live in a specific neighborhood, this is a good solution, especially if you're on a very tight budget. It just is, there is the negative to me that buyers are getting so much less space still for such exorbitant amounts of money. That is just, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the real estate market is really interesting to watch and pay attention to. I think everybody wants to buy a house, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of folks want to buy a house and have that dream. And it's from the pandemic, when it seemed like everyone was buying a house, to now where you can't buy a house even if you really, really wanted to and had a boatload of savings. And I think this might be a response to that in some ways. Like where the Treasure Valley needs more homes. We're in a housing shortage, and this does present an opportunity for more houses.
I'm also interested to know your take on, is Boise's new zoning code a factor in this trend? The new zoning code definitely encourages smaller, denser housing. How much of a factor do you think that plays?
I think it's still too early to see it in the numbers right now. The new zoning code went into effect in December of last year. And so I see these permits come through for houses, and I see these permits come through for ADUs. And yeah, I think as homes get built up, that they might be a little bit smaller because folks are trying to fit more in a smaller area, basically. The zoning code was very focused on density, and making sure that there was that a lot of those vacant pieces of land in the city are filled with stuff, rather than building out and we're losing farmland. Um, I don't think there's enough homes built yet since the zoning code to really see a drastic change in the numbers. I think down the line we might see those numbers come out a lot more. For now, though, I would agree that, yeah, we're probably going to see smaller homes, but we might just need to wait for those numbers to come out to actually prove that.
And you had mentioned there's still big houses to purchase. You can still get a big house if you want to, but there are pockets of these shrinking houses. Where are these pockets of shrinking houses focused? Where can people expect that they could maybe find that if they're looking for a more affordable housing option?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for instance, I think two kind of interesting pockets to look at, Eagle and the Harris Ranch community in Boise. So in Eagle, you have these very large houses. It's quite spread out, and city council and the planning department and the folks who work for Eagle and kind of help design that city, they want to maintain that sort of thing. They want to have front yards. They want to have space. They want to have these larger houses. In the Harris Ranch community, for instance, that's in Boise, and Boise has kind of taken the opposite direction. They want to fit more in. They want it to be denser. And in Harris Ranch, that takes an interesting thing because you do have these larger houses, but maybe you don't have as large of a backyard. And so that's kind of where those are kind of two interesting points to look at, I think, where you see Eagle is still getting built up a lot, and Harris Ranch is still getting built up a lot. And so you're seeing how these two areas are playing out at the same time, where one is focused on bigger development and one is focused a bit smaller footprints. So
just different approaches. We can kind of watch concurrently as they develop, just with really different perspectives on what they're focused on.
Yeah. And I will say that in Boise is still, and the Treasure Valley as a whole is still what I would probably consider a young city. It's still got a long way to go. If you look at someplace like Denver, Colorado, for instance, that's a lot further along in the development timeline. And you can see how these cities develop and change. And Boise still has a long way to go, and it's still growing, and there's still a big population boom. So it's just endlessly fascinating to see how the city changes and grows.
Nick, what What do you think that this shrinking house trend means for people who are still really trying to buy a house in this area or saving up, really trying to get housing here? What could this trend mean for them?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for folks. If you want to stay in the city and if you want to move up from renting to buying a house, maybe looking at a smaller home might get you there faster. You could still buy a home in the suburbs. That's totally still an option. But having more homes within the city in smaller footprints, there's going to be more homes that are available for folks to take advantage of. And the more homes that there is to take advantage of, the more it helps kind of modulate those housing prices. It's not a perfect solution. Obviously, you want your dream home. But I do think it does present somewhat of an opportunity for folks to get their foot in the door and maybe buy a home that they might not have been able to buy before.
Well, thank you so much, Nick, for breaking down this housing trend and what it could mean for people in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, we would love it if you'd tell a friend about us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another great local story. See you then.